The number one part of knowing yourself is to avoid following the herd. It is very tempting to do what others are doing because it feels like there's safety in it.
You can't do the same thing as 90% of the people and expect different results.
If you know you can come in, help them solve their problems, you are worth a lot of money to them. So it's worth understanding first yourself and then what you're looking for.
I actually study the most successful people in the world from any, whether it's in business or in sports, they always have a
Yep.
coach. All right, welcome back to this episode of the How to Get a Job podcast. And today I have an amazing episode. I have an amazing guest. I have an amazing fellow career coach that is not only an amazing career coach, not only does she have an amazing YouTube channel, an amazing podcast, but she's also a former international HR director. Sonal Bahl, how are you today?
Hey, Daniel, thanks for having me on the show.
Did I get it right? Did I get it right? No, we were practicing. Oh,
You did.
please. If not,
You
we'll
did good.
re-record it.
You did good. You did good.
So no, thank you so much for being here. Really enjoy like getting to know you on LinkedIn, and now that we get to talk. And what I was actually having the audience, we were talking about before I hit record, I was like saying, how awesome would it be if imagine me and you in a coffee shop, and the audience is listening to the advice of two amazing career coaches talk about how to get a job in 2024. And so, before we get started, would love if you could share a little bit about your history, your background. How did you get into coaching? Why did you get into coaching? You can do a million things, but you're here giving back and being a career coach.
Yeah. It is actually quite a story. So I started my career in the year 2000, and this was like that Y2K period. And I was in tech. I was in recruiting in tech, which was a very, very hot place to be. The dot-com bubble had not quite burst, and doing lots of recruiting. So when people talk about networking today, like for me, networking was recruiting people who understand Cisco routers. That was networking. So words like bandwidth networking, it took me years to figure out what they were talking about. So did that. Worked at GE Capital, General Electric, which was a
Mm-hmm.
fantastic opportunity for a 22-year-old. Learned quality, Six Sigma, all of that good stuff, and did lots and lots of employee relations, recruiting, sort of HR management. HR had always been like this soft. Always had a soft corner for it, and it felt like the natural sort of progressive step right after college. And then this was 4 years. And then 2005 is when there's a plot twist. And I get this opportunity to move completely to the other part of the world from New Delhi to South America, first in Uruguay, in Montevideo, Uruguay, and then for 1 year, and then in Santiago, in Chile, a year later. And this was the period where I was like, wow, okay, things are things are different in this part of the world. I need to figure my stuff out. I don't know, how do you get a job when you don't know anyone? You are new fresh meat. Nobody knows you. You don't even speak people's language. How are you going to figure things out? So learning everything from scratch, becoming fluent within months, because there was no choice. There was no choice. I could sit around and hang around with expats in our bubbles and pretend there was no life outside, but I wasn't that person. So I did lots of volunteer work, taught English to native Spanish speakers, and got all these jobs. And it was so expensive back then, Daniel, to learn a language. We have all these amazing apps today, but back then you had to go to like a Berlitz and pay someone, I don't know, 40, $50 an hour. It was a princely amount back in the day, right? And then got my big break working at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, in 2006. And that's because of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, I had a LinkedIn account for about a year. This is so long ago, but taking advantage of it as a tool. I met someone locally there. We went out for lunch and introduced me to someone. In Spanish they would say via. And then, okay, long story short, got an amazing role there. And then did that process improvement, project management for 2 years. In Spanish, nobody spoke a word of English, and I was like this exotic species. People didn't understand what I was doing there. Everyone thought I was Brazilian because I'm pretty tall by Indian standards, and I'm, so what? There's a lot of blonde, blue-eyed people in South America. People don't believe that, but yeah, there were a lot of those
A
because
lot of
there
Europe.
weren't many.
Yep. Yep.
A lot of European immigration over hundreds
Yeah.
of years. And compared to them, I was what they would call morena, la morena, right? So dark hair. And so I had to learn to say, "Na fala português." I had to say, "I don't speak Portuguese. Please stop harassing me." Because they would be like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" So that was really, really fun. And I came to Europe to study. Wanted to do an MBA, and time was ticking. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Can I do it? Can I not do it?" I was 28, 29. And when I said time was ticking, it was ticking in more ways than one. We'd been married for a little while. And then I was like, "Oh, do we want to have a kid? Do we not want to have a kid?" So I ended up going to business school with a newborn. It was a choice. It was not like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" It was something I wanted to do. That was an intense period. 1 year full time MBA with a newborn that I was still feeding, and taught me everything about time management, resilience, projects, getting stuff done. As much as helpful as my husband was, he was working, and he would be going, take a train to Paris, and I was in a little village called Fontainebleau in the south of Paris, and graduated. Another plot twist: very expensive program. It was a very big deal, to get in, and then you graduate in the middle of the global financial crisis. This is, I don't know if you remember, you're probably too young back then, but the subprime mortgage crisis that happened in the US had major implications in Europe. So it was a very hard time to graduate from an expensive program and look for jobs. And I ended up getting 5 offers. And I'm very proud to say that, but I'm not saying this to show off and say that I was better than everyone, because I wasn't. Actually, I struggled academically a lot. And, certain subjects I was always behind. And it wasn't that I was better than everyone. It's just that I understood the HR side of things because I had done that for so long,
Mm.
and I knew what the hiring manager was looking for, and I could play that game as if it's a two-way street. So, graduating at a time when my friends didn't even have one offer, here I was with 5, and I was literally going eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Came to Brussels, chose Brussels, and worked in a telecom company. Had a fantastic couple of years there in human resources, was responsible for France, Spain, Germany, Belgium, and Netherlands for a couple of their upcoming brands. And it was fantastic. Loved life in Europe. And then there was a period of turbulence, and they said, "Hey, can you move to The Hague in the Netherlands?" And I was like, "We've literally done like 5 countries in 6 years. It's not going to happen right away." And we'd had a baby by then, right? So took severance, took a nice envelope from them, and decided I'll figure something out. So, and then worked in mining and chemicals. Amazing work, responsible for human resources for the HQ. Some of the most difficult HQ people are always hard because they think everybody's, they think they're special, right? People in the in the different subsidiaries, it's different. But being responsible for HQ functions, did that for a couple of years. Um, the industry went through massive, economic upheavals. Margins were, wafer thin, and it was like, what do we do? So the first thing they did, get rid of HQ staff, a lot of HQ staff. So I was one of the first ones to let go. So I've been through 3 layoffs, and I say this so openly because we have a stigma when we talk about
Yep.
layoffs. Like, no, there's nothing wrong. It just happens sometimes. Last in, first out. It's extremely, extremely not personal. And then I worked in food ingredients, a company that made food ingredients in Belgium for the world. So had a fantastic time. Had about 18 years, 18, 19 years in corporate life. And I got a bit, I'm not one of those people that trashes like 9 to 5 and that like, I want to do my own thing. I was never that person. I didn't even know the word entrepreneur, what it really means. Because in French, it has a very different meaning. And by the way, yeah, I came here and learned French. I mean, I had Spanish, came French, because it was like, what do? You just gotta do it. There was no choice, right?
Yeah.
So here I am speaking Spanish, speaking French, and I live in Belgium. A big part of Belgium is Dutch speaking, right? And so I was like, the job I was in, I was a little bit disillusioned in the sense that I didn't like where HR was going. I didn't like where the leadership, all of the things were happening. And I was like, what else? What else is out there? So I made this foolish decision, brave slash foolish. Everybody said I was brave, but I knew what they said in parentheses was foolish, of quitting without a job in hand because I felt like I was going down a path that I did not like. I didn't like who I became. And I spent 2018 figuring myself out, worked with a coach, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was lost. I call it my year of being lost and being found. And in the middle of all that, I decided, hey, I've had a little bit of a fun life. I've had all these adventures. What if I could help someone? Why don't I start a YouTube channel and let me just dump some of my lessons and learnings and just put them in there. And that was a very rocky journey because the first couple of videos nobody was really watching, and I was like, oh my god, this is so hard, and let me just give up. So I just gave up, and I took some of those videos, put them on LinkedIn, and then suddenly a couple of months later people started reaching out. I saw this video, or I read this article of yours, can we talk? And I was like, you want to talk to me? Because Daniel, by then my self confidence was so small, and it took me a while to figure out that they wanted to work with me, and then more people, and then more people. So before you knew it, I was like, okay, I guess I'm a career coach. So long story short, that's the story.
Love it, love it. I want to actually. There's a couple of things that you said, but some of the things that kind of stood up, and I think this would be a really good kind of pivot point to like talking about how, if you're listening to this, can help you get a job in 2024. You mentioned that you had graduated during a really difficult economic time with 5 job offers, and you weren't necessarily the highest GPA or the smartest student, academically speaking. And I say that because I recently kind of created a video of my story and how when I graduated college in 2012, I also had multiple job offers, and I graduated with a 2.9. It's very similar. Sharing publicly that I wasn't like I'm not the best when it comes to academic and taking tests, and how my wife and I have talked about this. How my wife went to a better school, she had higher GPA, but then she struggled to get a job, even though like on paper she's much better fit to work at the companies that I got offers from. And I wish I could say that I knew HR at that time and I got those reasons for the same reasons you did because you had that perfect experience. I think for me, I think it happened more because I knew how to build relationships, and because of that, that led to the visibility and to be able to get jobs. So I kind of wanted us to kind of focus on that and to say, hey, in 2024, do you think that hiring still is built on relationships? Or do you think that like if somebody looking to get a job now, how important is the relationship, understanding the hiring manager, the human side of hiring, or is there now being built where it's all computers, it's all ATS, it's all AI that's making a decision?
Yeah, such a good question. I think that when younger people ask about how things, hey, like, hey, that advice is not relevant in 2024, I want to call BS on that, because there's so many things that have carried over 20 in the last 20-25 years. And you know what, there's an expression in French, le plus les choses changent, the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Mm,
Yes, stuff around is changing. Of course, I'm not going to deny that. And that will. And I hope it takes away some of the most mundane things from work and life. I'm still waiting for that machine that can detect individual socks. So I don't have these orphans sitting in a mountain pile in a room that I don't want anybody going into, So matching socks, folding my laundry. I want that stuff done. So there is a lot of mundane stuff in recruiting that we want automated. But things that are classic, things that will not change for a long time, right, are a few principles, 3, 4 principles. I've written about this back in 2020. So I'm just, while listening to you, I just want to, reflect on those a little bit more. How did I get those 5 offers? Because I wasn't special and I wasn't different. Did I understand what HR is looking for? Yes, more than the average person. But I also kind of knew what the hiring manager is looking for, because it comes down to just simple human sort of psychology, right? But before you understand other people and before you go around forming relationships, you do need to understand yourself very well, because we think we do, we skip that, and we fast forward to everything else.
Yep.
So I want to leave your, listener very concretely with 5 specific points that I think will help. The number one part of knowing yourself is to avoid following the herd. It is very tempting to do what others are doing because it feels like there's safety in it. And I get it. Human beings, we're social, right? Dogs are pack animals. We thrive in, relationships and being with everyone else, and there's safety in numbers, but not always. So when I was graduating with my MBA, everyone was getting into consulting. That always has, that school is one of the best suppliers, biggest suppliers of McKinsey in the world. And I knew very well from day one that wasn't for me. And I'd done PwC, I'd done consulting, and I knew that it didn't necessarily light me up. That part is important because, particularly when times are hard and you feel like jobs are tight, there are not too many out there, stick to the devil you know. Avoid following the herd. When everyone zigs, you zag. But how do you do that? Um, do not necessarily, think about what are the jobs in vogue right now. AI, ML, oh my God, they're being beaten to death. But if this doesn't interest you, then focus on what is it that you're more suited for. And here, I want to tout my own horn and yours as well, Daniel. It really, really helps to work with someone because we have way too many blind spots. And I have a coach of mine who tells me, he says, you cannot tickle yourself, just like you can't tickle
Mm.
yourself. You cannot coach yourself.
Yep.
You can't. It's just not possible. You don't know what's written on the label outside because you're inside the jar, right? So that definitely helps. And you also, the second point as well is, and then I'm going to pause because I've been talking a lot. You also want to be aware of your inner game. The inner game is very easy to overlook because we think we've got it, but I still remember when I would go to interviews in 2008, 2009, when I would be like, I would dress up, take the train from Fontainebleau to Paris, and then come back. So you could look in, and then I would attend class. Then people would, turn around. Everyone looked around and everyone knew who'd had interviews that day because the rest of us were in jeans, right? And if you're like the odd one out who's wearing a suit and you made an effort, you put on lipstick and you're like, you got interviews in this economic environment, so the as opposed to, hey, she's doing it, I can do it too, right? So that sort of comparison, not in a bad way but in a used for encouragement. You got to have a very, very good source to the calmness inside your voice that says, hey, don't worry, you'll figure it out. It's very encouraging because there's, you got this, as opposed to, what are you going to do, this is so scary, your visa's about to expire. Like, I was like probably a lot of your students, Daniel. I'm Indian. Like, my passport is one of the most difficult passports to have. I need work permission to work in almost every country in the world, maybe except Nepal. I didn't have any desire at that time to work in Nepal. So to drown out that loud cacophony is hard work because it's extremely tempting. But
Yep.
listening to that calm voice, and who do you surround yourself with? Are you surrounding yourself with naysayers and fearmongers? Are you surrounding yourself with people like Daniel, with people like, Diana Waike Chan, with people like myself who are like, focus on what you bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
So there's 3 other points, but I'll pause here because I
Yeah, let's go
want to hear
here.
back
Let's
from you.
dive into this little point, this first 2 points, because I think they're super important. Um, and I love the first point when you said avoid, following the herd, because I think that is that's a trap that we all fall. There's a level of security, of false security that we get by following the herd. Like, okay, well, if we all do it, even if we all fail, we fail together. But like the reality is, especially if you're listening to this and you consider yourself a high achiever and you consider yourself someone that has goals and ambition, then you can't do the same thing as 90% of the people and expect different results. And I think that's where you need to be able to uh, understand what is it that you want to do with your life, what is it you want to accomplish both professionally, personally, in every aspect of your life, and say, okay, now I might have to work harder than the average person if I want more than average, more than the average person's results. And if not, then I think there's a level of delusion that we need to overcome, because you can't, in the long term, you're not going to get those results if you're not willing to do that go to the extra mile or do the things that the above average people, the overachievers, are willing to do.
That
And
exactly that working harder and also working smarter. You don't
smarter, yeah,
necessarily have to
absolutely.
work.
And
Yeah,
that kind of goes to the second point of, like, you talked about the importance of coaching, and I think you're right. I think that it's, for me, I found is like the best way to reach any goal is to learn from someone who's done it, right? And I think that's one of like the few shortcuts of life, because I think
yeah, yeah,
it's being able to, life is a trade-off of time and money, and you can either figure it out with your time through trial and error. You will eventually figure it out as long as you don't give up. Or you can speed up that learning curve by learning from someone who's already gone through the journeys and the turbulation. And by the way, you're going to make your own mistakes. That means it's not going to mean that your life is going to be perfect, but you're going to be able to speed up the learning curve by someone who's already built the path and say, hey, follow me, avoid this, avoid the gators, avoid the sharks, do this, and then it will
yeah,
get you to the faster. And I think that's where, I think, to your point, and by the way, it's not even don't hire us, go hire the right coach for you, but you should hire a coach. And if you actually study the most successful people in the world, from any, whether it's in business or in sports, they always have a
yeah,
coach. Like Michael Jordan,
yeah.
the greatest basketball player in the world, had a coach. Tom Brady, best football player in the world, had a
And
coach.
they continue to have. I do want to quickly just, yeah, add here, because there's a little bit of a nuance, the word coach, because coaching as a term is very loosely used these days.
Yep.
If we call ourselves coach, we need to make sure that we have the right credentials, because there is a certain science and art to it. You need to have certain number of hours to call yourself a coach. I think in normal parlance, what we're talking about is a guide, a mentor, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not coaching only pure play, where it's like, let me ask the reflective questions and you're the one who comes up with answers. No, it's a little bit of answers as well, because someone wants to work on their LinkedIn profile. It's not, they're not coming to Daniel, and Daniel is saying, what do you think your headline should be? What do you think your about section? No, we're going to give you the shortcuts. So if you want to get the shortcuts, get a guide, get a mentor, get someone who will, have your back, because this is not an easy journey, and it's very easy to give up
Yeah.
instead,
Yeah.
and do something else that you're less suited for.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go into the last 3 points, I think it's really important to you. You talked about getting clarity, and I think that's the first step that most people, not everyone, but most people end up skipping. They're so ready to start applying, to work on their resume, and just starting submitting their resume everywhere where there's a job position that matches their qualifications, that they don't take the time to do a self assessment, saying, what do I want? Where do I see myself in a year, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now? And how is this role play into this grand plan that I have for my life? Because if you're just applying to 100 companies every single month or even every single week because there's easy apply buttons or there is some AI tool that is applying for you, then you are not taking control of which are the companies that I actually see myself working in. And what happens, and I see this so many times, is, let's say you apply to 100 companies and you do get a call back from one of those companies. What are the odds that one of those, the company that calls you back is the right company for you? And then from there, like, it's very small because you lose the
Yeah,
quality side of it. It's very small. And then
exactly.
what's going to happen is that you're then just going to justify it. And let's say I get a call from a company and like, oh my God, this company is amazing. Look at their benefits. And you find ways to logically justify why this company is the right fit,
Yeah,
even though
yeah.
it would have never been on your radar if you would have started with clarity.
Yeah, I think that that's a very good point, and I want to add two analogies here to leave your listener with, because they're one of them is really funny, and they're very true. So, a quick personal note here: I never went into sort of online apps, online dating, because I was, shipped off and married in 2004. So before all of the good fun stuff, unfortunately, I missed out on it. From what I hear, okay, because I don't understand swipe right, swipe left. From what I hear, right, when you create a profile on Tinder, on Bumble, whatever it is you're on, Match.com, whatever, eHarmony, I don't know, you first talk about yourself, and then you talk about what you're looking for. You never ever go to these apps without saying what you're looking for, right? Because the equivalent of what you just said, Daniel, is like, I don't care about what I'm looking for. I'm just going to go and ask every girl on the app to date me or to marry me, which sounds
Yeah.
ridiculous. I know it's not the same thing. Marriage and dating, not always exactly the same when it comes to working. But when we have certain criteria, if companies have criteria, what they're looking for in their ideal candidate, why do we not have criteria, right? What is wrong with us, and what is wrong with doing that? And I've been in HR for so long. I still remember 2016 is the first time we heard I heard the term in one of our conferences with this giant stage, and all our senior leadership was there, and brought in all these expensive consultants. It was such a show. The term war for talent.
Yep.
This is the first
I
time I
remember
heard
that.
it, 2016. And the point is, good people are hard to find. So when people say, yeah, it's easy for you to say that, Sonal, because I need them more than they need me. And actually, you'll be surprised. Good talent is hard to find. Companies, if they don't find the right butt on the right seat at the right time, they are hemorrhaging money, they're losing money. If you know you can come in, help them solve their problems, you are worth a lot of money to them. So it's worth understanding first yourself and then what you're looking for, because if you don't, you are like that dude, you are like that babe who's asking everybody to date them, and that's not a good look for you. It's not a good look. It's not worth it, because you're worth it. I'm doing my L'Oreal hair flip when I say this. You're totally worth it. The second analogy I want to say is, when we're driving a car, right? I think of the word car as half your career, like car rear. Get it? So there's a lot of pressure, and people will say on social media, you should be in the driver's seat of your career. Yes or no? It's tiring. Sometimes you want a break, right? Your GPS is not working. Stop at a gas station, fuel up, ask your friend to drive instead. No problem, and we will go through life. We will not be driving our career our entire life. It's not possible. There's so many advantages of not being in the driver's seat. You enjoy the view, right? So there are times in your career when you're on autopilot. No problem. No problem. Don't let anybody judge you and make you feel less than. Okay. Having said that, if you don't like where the car is going, you don't even know where the car is going, then you better bloody get back in the driver's seat. Put on the damn GPS, find a map, whatever it is, and then figure out where you're going. And if you need to take a pit stop, do that. Fuel up, do that. Get a snack, because life's too short to be doing something where you're literally dreading Monday morning, and before you know it, it's been 3 years, 2 years of being miserable. It's not worth it. So you do need to know yourself, where is the car going? If you don't like it, where would you like it to go instead? This is the kind of work, once you do it really well, you'll reap dividends for a very long time.
No, I love it. I love it. Let's keep. What's number three?
Yeah, perfect. Number three is part of the knowing yourself,
Yep.
and that is double down on your strengths. I'll give you a very simple example. Everyone talks about strengths. If you want, if you can do the strengths assessment by gallup.com, you can go the free one on highfive.com. You can do all of that. Gallup will give you five of them. In Europe, I think it's like 28 or 30 euros, something like that. It's not
I
bad
know
for
the
the top
hack.
five.
You buy this book. Hold on. There's a hack. If you are really interested, you buy this book called First Break All the Rules, which is a leadership book, and it has a code
From
for you to
Gallup.
take
And it
it
has
for
a
free.
code. Oh,
It
amazing.
has a code,
Amazing.
and you can get this book for $12.
Oh, okay, cool. So half the price of the strength test. You just got a hot tip right here from Daniel Botero. Get the book. You can also get the free one from High Five, which I find very good, surprisingly value for money considering
Yep.
it's free. The point is, it gives you vocabulary. You're not thinking I'm good at strategy. You're not like kind of hoping. It tells you, and you can look for examples. So I'll give you a very simple example. Back when I was interviewing, looking for jobs when I was finishing my MBA, I knew a strength of mine was interpersonal skills. I would be extremely comfortable. I would make jokes with the interviewer, and we would immediately be on the same page. It felt like a level playing field. But in order to do that, I wanted to make sure that every single meeting, even the first screening, was in person. which they don't like because they want to do the first screening over the phone. I'm talking 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Yes, Skype, phone. They don't want you to come in, the whole shebang, red carpet. They don't have time for that. But I would be like, please have me come in. I will, at my own cost, take the train 2 hours, go there because I knew it was worth it, right? Figure out what your strengths are and please put them up front because you're setting yourself up for success when you lead from a place of strength instead of what you don't have, what you think you don't have. Please
Yeah.
don't waste time on that. That's number three.
But I think that's important. And when you mean putting it up front, is putting to me. I think about putting yourself in a situation where you're using those strengths even more. Because what I found is that your strengths can also be your weaknesses, all dependent on the environment that you are.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's really important that whatever job you're doing, that is playing to your strengths. So if you don't know what those strengths are and you're not conscious about what that is and putting yourself to do that, they become your weakness. And
I completely agree. And I also want to add the reason I don't like a lot of these assessment tools, do them, but don't let them be the be all and end all.
yeah,
Okay. I like to think more broader. And I'll give you an example. Just this morning, I had a call with someone. We're going to be working together. So, in my discovery call with him, right, he talked about having lived for 20 years in South Africa. He's
yeah,
German and he wants to move to Switzerland or he wants to move to Germany, one of these two places. And every time he's met people, they look at his CV. The first thing they say is, ah, yeah, but you haven't lived in Germany for 20 years. And I'm like, those are not your people. You want people who appreciate that you've been away from home. You have learned three, four languages in the meantime. You understand cultural nuance. So
yeah,
do not, firstly think of strengths in a broader way. Not this is one way. The strengths assessment is great. It's not
yeah,
the only way. Do not think that what you bring to the table, you need to dumb it down. I have a client who worked so long in Africa. She's now back in Texas and she thinks she needs to dumb herself down
um,
because people around her don't know if Africa is a country or a continent and they don't care about that experience. I'm like,
they're
well,
wrong with
that experience is rich and you should be earning more. And she thought she needs to earn less because locally nobody cares about that experience. So do not let people dictate what a
yeah.
strength is because instead of looking at South Africa, Africa, whatever they've done as a liability, I am working so damn hard to make
Yeah.
them view it as an asset.
So right. And there's this story of like a dad gave his son this really old car, really
Yeah.
old car.
Yeah.
And
Where
so
was
the
it
son,
valued? Yes.
yeah, and
Yes.
so the son takes it to the junkyard. They're like, "Yeah, we'll give you $500." And then he
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, well, that's not enough." This
Yeah.
guy takes the car to a dealership, and they're like, "Hey, we'll give you $1,000." And then then he then takes it to a car collector show, and they're like, "Hey, we'll give you $20,000." And then he took it to a museum, and the museum said, "Hey, we'll give you $200,000." And like, I think the lesson is like, it's the same car. It's the same car the whole time, but it's just where you have to go where your talents are appreciated, where your strengths, where your strengths are going to allow you, where you could double down your strengths, where you're in the right room, where it's valued. Because it's the difference between you getting $500 at a junkyard or you're getting $200,000 at a
100%.
museum. So
100%.
number four.
Number four, think like a CMO, Chief
Mm,
Marketing Officer. The way they look at their next brand activation, brand campaign, you need to be looking at that job search process exactly the same way. And I'm going to give you specific examples. What is your key messaging? What is your USP or unique selling proposition? What value do you bring to the hiring organization? I remember back then, I created a hiring brochure. I went to these print shops. They cost me a pretty penny because remember, I was doing an expensive MBA, newborn baby, diapers. We had no money, but still went out of my way. And I had my CV that I also printed with these guys that had a tagline. Like Nike has a tagline. Below my name was a tagline. And I shared that in the course because, and people around me were laughing. They're like, that is so weird because there would be a CV book that the business school would print out and, alphabetically, and mine was under S. Guess what? I was the only one with a tagline. And I think it helped me. So the way I view marketing is, how are you differentiating yourself
yep.
in this noisy, busy
Mm,
world? And it is much more crucial today than it's ever been, because everybody has access to candidates at their fingertips, like unlike what they did before. So you need to apply a lot of the marketing concepts, if you've ever learned them, apply them from all those courses into your resume, your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
If cover letters are used, go ahead and do that. Every single touch point. And the fifth one is interviews. You gotta ace them. You damn well be good at them, because people who are terrible at interviews, it's so unfair, because they may be so good at their job, but the
Yes.
reality is the people who get the job are the ones who know how to crack the interviews. They may not even be the most qualified people in the room. I repeat, the person who gets the job may not even be the most qualified person in the room. Is that fair? Hell not. Hell no. But life isn't fair either, right? So what you want to do is learn to have a smooth flowing conversation, learn to, deal with, go with the punches, land those curveballs easily. So if you get any kind of weird questions, you can do that. And at the same time, those classic, I call them butt questions, BUT, boring, unoriginal, traditional questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Tell me about yourself. What is your greatest weakness? All that nonsense, you can answer them because you went prepared.
Yeah.
There is no way you can bypass that, because we
Yeah.
still live in a world where people want to meet you before they hire you.
Yeah, there. I have yet, in the time I've been a career coach, have ever heard of someone saying, "Hey, Daniel, we got your resume. We just want to send you an offer." Never heard of it.
Yeah.
There's always been like,
Yeah.
"Hey, we want to interview you first. We want to get
Yeah.
to know you. We want to talk to you first." So I love this. I even love that when you talk about a thing like a CMO, there's a quote I actually tell our clients. It's like, visibility becomes actually more important than ability when it comes to getting your foot in the door. Like, you still need to be able to do the job, but in
Yeah.
this world, where the internet has made it so easy for anyone to apply online, it's made it more difficult for you to get noticed. So your visibility, how you're getting noticed, whether that is through, you're thinking like a CMO, having a great LinkedIn account where you're creating content, you're getting the referrals, you're networking your way. All of those things are extremely important to get you into the interview stage. But yes, again, there's no job offer without going through interviewing first,
Yeah.
in
So
any
I'm going
company.
to summarize these, but I quickly want to say that if I, a new mom, a very muddy, cloudy brain, struggling academically with certain subjects, with zero network in Europe, requiring a work permit. Okay. If I could land 5 offers in a country where I didn't even speak the local language, you, my dear, listening today, can definitely go and do better than that with these 5 tips that we just talked about. So, quick recap: don't follow the herd. Number two, think like a chief marketing officer. Number three, double down on those strengths. You got to know what they are. Number four, ace the interview. And five, be aware of your inner game.
Love it. Love it. If people say, "Hey, these tips are amazing, but I want to learn more about how to work with you, how to learn more from you," what would be the next step?
Sure, perfect. I think, thank you for asking. I think that whenever you see you like someone's coaching style, I highly recommend follow some of their free stuff first. It's like a try, it's like you're taking the car out for a spin. You get a good feeling before you want to buy, right? So check out my YouTube channel. I'll share all the links with you. Daniel, once in a while I post on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter. So check out all those free resources. And if it feels like, I think I'd like some help, check out my website, superchargeyourself.com. All the work with me links are there. We can definitely get together. But like I said, take your time, take advantage of free resources, because you need to feel good when it's an experience, right, Daniel? When you share anything on YouTube or your podcast, you're sharing a part of yourself. You will repel, you will attract. That's okay. If it feels like you're getting pulled in and you're getting attracted, then follow your follow your gut.
Yeah, no, it's so true. So amazing. We'll put all those links, your LinkedIn, your website, and your YouTube channel, all in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming. For all the listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do so and share this episode with at least one person that you think needs to hear those 5 tips. Thank you all for listening, and catch you guys on the next episode.